They said it was impossible, that no one would dare strike so deep within Iran's shadowed core. But then the skies ignited. Precision missiles sliced through the night, zeroing in on what the world had long whispered about: Iran's concealed nuclear facilities. The world held its breath, waiting for silence, surrender, collapse. But what emerged from the smoke wasn't panic. It wasn't fear. It was something far stronger. Iran stood tall, not shattered, but steel forged. Not broken, but reborn in defiance. Tonight we uncover the chapter few dare to discuss. A story where strength isn't measured by warheads, but by the unshakable will of a people who refuse to kneel. Stay with me, because once you see this through a different lens, you may never look at this conflict the same way again. After years of surveillance, calculation, and political brinkmanship, the United States launched a preemptive strike. Hidden beneath mountains and desert, Iran's nuclear infrastructure, long suspected but never confirmed, became the target. For decades, diplomats negotiated, sanctions tightened, and the shadow of war loomed. But when diplomacy reached its limits, Washington acted. The assault was not haphazard, it was precise. Years of intelligence gathering mapped the deepest tunnels, tracked every shipment, decoded encrypted chatter. With stealth aircraft, bunker-busting bombs, and cyber strikes, America struck hard, aiming to neutralize Iran's nuclear future in one swift motion. The world awoke to fire, smoke, and satellite images of destruction. American officials hailed it a success, an act of defense against an unpredictable nuclear future. They called it necessary, timely, preventative. But beneath the headlines lay a deeper ambition. This wasn't just about disabling centrifuges. It was psychological warfare, an attempt to fracture Iran's resolve, to crush a nation's confidence, to remind the world that resistance to American power would carry a price. Yet even the most carefully planned strike can miscalculate the human spirit. In the hours after the assault, the world watched for signs of collapse in Iran. They saw none. No panic, no breakdown. Instead, a nation responded with a calm, focused defiance. From Tehran's leadership to villagers far from the capital, one message echoed across the country: we will not be broken. This was no act, no performance. This was the muscle memory of a people who had endured more than most. Since 1979, Iran had lived under siege, sanctions, sabotage, assassinations, isolation. Every attempt to force submission had only strengthened their capacity to endure. Rather than scatter them, the strike pulled Iranians together. Crowds gathered in unity, waving flags, chanting with defiance. This was not reckless bravado, but the hardened resolve of a people who have learned that real power lies not in rage, but in patience. Their resistance wasn't merely political. It was spiritual, rooted in a belief that struggle is a test, hardship a purification, and standing firm in the face of oppression, a divine obligation. This is a form of power that can't be targeted by missiles or erased by sanctions. Iran's resilience had been forged long before the first missile struck. Years of sanctions crippled its economy, but forced innovation. Foreign isolation made them self-reliant. Cyber attacks built one of the region's most advanced counter-cyber defense programs. Assassinations of scientists were met not with despair, but with determination. New generations rising, trained domestically, prepared to continue the work. What was meant to paralyze Iran only sharpened its resolve. Even isolation became a strength. The government framed sanctions not as punishment, but proof. Proof of independence, proof of righteousness, proof that the West feared what they could not control. Through decades of siege, Iran didn't merely survive. It adapted, innovated, and emerged stronger. From North Africa to Southeast Asia, the Muslim world stirred. In Cairo, Jakarta, Istanbul, and beyond, protests erupted, not in defense of a regime, but in rejection of a pattern. The message was clear. Another Muslim nation struck, another chapter in a century of interference, occupation, and domination. For many, Iran's endurance became symbolic, a stand not just for sovereignty, but for dignity, a call to the broader Muslim world. How long will we remain divided while others dictate our fate? Decades of sectarianism, ethnic divisions, and political rivalries had fractured the Muslim world. But this strike reminded many that beneath those differences lies a shared vulnerability, and perhaps a shared purpose. This was more than a strike. It was a signal that resistance could inspire unity, that a nation long isolated and punished could become a model of defiance. The West, long reliant on internal divisions within the Muslim world, now faces the threat of something it never expected: awakening. What if Iran's endurance becomes a blueprint? What if others follow? The idea terrifies those who built their influence on dependence and division, because a united Muslim world, rich in resources, youth, and history, could reshape the global order. But even beyond politics lies something deeper still. This is not just about weapons or even alliances. It's about something far more dangerous to the architects of domination: faith. For Iran, resistance is not a tactic, it's a belief system, a sacred duty. They see struggle as sacred, endurance as honorable. And the youth of Iran, born into this resistance, do not carry fear. They carry inheritance of dignity, of sacrifice, of self-determination. This spiritual armor cannot be measured in intelligence reports. It cannot be intercepted or sanctioned. It is passed down, not built. And it resonates far beyond Iran's borders. The West may measure power in fleets and dollars, but in Iran and across the Muslim world, power is measured in patience, in purpose, in the ability to endure fire and emerge with soul intact. So while missiles fall and leaders speak of victories, a deeper reality takes root. America struck first, but the story is far from over. What it encountered was not just military resistance. It was a people whose foundation is not made of steel or concrete, but of faith and memory, of trial and triumph. And now, across the Muslim world, eyes are opening, minds are questioning, and hearts are beginning to understand that true power is not in striking first, but in never yielding. This is more than Iran's story. It is the beginning of something greater, an awakening, a reckoning, a reclaiming of identity long suppressed. The world may continue to chase power, but for a people anchored in faith, the true battle is not for dominance. It is for dignity. And that battle is only beginning. To those who have listened, carry these truths forward. Let them remind you that beneath every strike, beneath every speech, there is always a deeper struggle, one of spirit, one of resilience, one of a people who simply refuse to fall.